heavy,
bored.
Very good. And I don't know, there's just that revival of the beats, and everybody kind of, it's romanticized to this thing, and then you kind of pick up those books that everybody talks about and you start reading them, and it's, yeah, you know, maybe this was really exciting in the 50s, but like it just isn't as exciting to me now. It's kind of boring and long-winded, and this kind of, I don't want to say small-minded because it isn't. It's just kind of this, I get bored by philosophical takes. I get bored by autofiction. If I'm just stuck rambling around in somebody's head who isn't interesting, like, I don't know. Like, dude, the biggest thing, when I read Desolation Angels for Kerouac, that was the moment that sealed the deal for me, where I was like, you know, I don't think I like the Beats. Like, I was like, you know what? I don't think I really like these guys that much, like, in terms of their writing. I like the idea. I like the romanticized kind of artsy thing behind it.
Well, and can we talk about some of the romanticized kind of artsy things behind it? Like, what are the romanticized kind of artsy things behind it? Because I think that
drugs,
is like part of what,
Nomad.
That's like what makes this like the coming of age poet's poem. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes Ginsberg like the young poet's poet. He's a great one, like, to be introduced to poetry, right? He's a great one to get into, you know, when you're sort of first exploring that, because one, it's pretty accessible, even though it's really, you know, he writes a lot of long poems.
It rejects the stuffiness of poetry, but by the same time, it's still using the techniques of poetry to make a great poem.
And it's still
so
like,
it's really a brilliant. Yeah.
The easiest read in the world. I wouldn't look at this and be like, yeah, this is an easy poem.
But you're right. You can read
down.
Howl without knowing anything about poetry and still get something out of it. Like,
right, exactly. And you'll still feel it. And even if it's just like, you know, an accumulation of sort of, I don't want to reduce it to an accumulation of profanities, but like you sort of get something about the attitude of the poet, and you get these snippets that really, I think, are an easy window, which, again, easy is the wrong word, but like I think it's accessible to younger readers in a way that, as somebody who is very self-conscious about you know, their knowledge of poetry, even like, you know, as somebody who is just becoming acquainted.
You don't know your own authority,
you know,
or suspicious of your own authority, as we talked about
I
on
mean,
the Phillips episode and stuff like that.
You know, I think it's a really good entryway into sort of becoming a serious reader of poetry and like really starting to break things down. Which is, you know, I would say the same is true of like Emily Dickinson. It's just because it's something she has such short poems that you can read over and over and over again.
And I think the reason people are drawn to it, I think for the same reason people are drawn to a lot of the past movements of literature, not just because they're good and like good works that people like to read, but because the Beats had a very, you know, it was still in this time where like communities could exist in the writing world. So like the Beats were a specific school of writing, or what we would call a school in scholarship years later type thing.
And well, like, and they were a community, and they reference each other a lot in their writing.
They reference each other's work and the dedication of this, which we're about.
But like spent time together, spent time like composing,
lived
each
together,
other's presence.
got drunk
like
together,
they hung out, like they were
sucked
friends.
each other's dicks. Yeah, like,
not in the
literally.
way of we're just colleagues. Like they, you know, were friends.
Right. Yeah. They were.
Inner resources, American resources.
Being bored. It shows such a lack of gratitude for life. Bored. I aspire to boredom, I should say.
Bored. Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
Has you the night sweats and the day sweats, pal? Pal, I do.